what will be the priorities of Pakistan vis-a-vis some of the core issues that Pakistan is facing?
Jammu and Kashmir is a priority for Pakistan. Afghanistan is a priority for Pakistan. Counter-terrorism is a priority.
So how global governance could be improved? Would you elaborate, please?
Pakistan says that there should be more non-permanent members. We do not like to add permanent members because it's the permanent members and the veto power which has paralyzed the council, and we should not add more permanent members. It will further paralyze the Security Council. We need to improve the powers of the General Assembly.
UN different agencies which have been operating in Pakistan in the days to come, do you think their operations will continue?
It will impact the programs that are being funded by the NGOs and by civil society in Pakistan. So they are the ones that will suffer the most.
Affected. What is the future of peace in Gaza?
President Trump, who has supported the ceasefire, that he will be able to control and contain the Israelis from reviving the conflict.
Pakistan's perspective on global peace and security as non-permanent member of UN Security Council.
Our approach is to promote international law, promote the UN Charter, promote the principles on which international relations are supposed to be conducted.
Yes. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Hello and welcome to program Inside in V News English. Dear viewers, Pakistan is sitting in the United Nations Security Council as non-permanent member. So as a non-permanent member, it is expected that Pakistan will be playing a major role in maintaining global peace, security, UN Charter, and also promoting and protecting multilateralism. So recently, India has once again leveled baseless allegations against Pakistan, which Pakistan has strongly rejected, including India's baseless claim that Jammu and Kashmir is an integral part of India. And second, most unfortunate and again baseless allegation, terming Pakistan as hub of global terrorism. This has not come first time. Quite recently, when Indian Prime Minister met US President Mr. Trump in Washington, in joint statement, a negative reference was given to Pakistan, again terming Pakistan as a hub of global terrorism. So Pakistan's position in the United Nations Security Council is unique. And a couple of days back, Pakistan also held a debate at UN Security Council in which these all issues were comprehensively discussed, highlighting Pakistan's sacrifices in the war against terror, Pakistan's narrative on Jammu and Kashmir, Pakistan's narrative in countering terrorism and maintaining global peace and security. Finally, in July this year, Pakistan will be president of the United Nations Security Council for a month. To discuss this all, that what would be Pakistan's priorities during 2025 and 2026 as non-permanent member of UN Security Council, and how Pakistan sees different conflicts, including Ukraine, including Gaza, certain other issues like Islamophobia, disinformation, and these all things. We are fortunate to have with us Pakistan's permanent representative to United Nations, Ambassador Munir Akram Saab. Ambassador Munir Akram Saab, very warm welcome to program Insight.
Thank you very much, Mateen.
Yes. Please share with our audience that in 2025, you have already held in-depth discussion and debate in which you highlighted the reasons for terrorism, how peace and security could be maintained, and of course, the negative attitude of neighboring country India towards disturbing regional peace and security, particularly peaceful ties with Pakistan. So what will be the priorities of Pakistan vis-a-vis some of the core issues that Pakistan is facing?
Thank you. First of all, Mateen bhai, I'd like to underline that the narrative which India has propagated against Pakistan, including in the bilateral joint communique with the US, this is a lonely narrative. There is no traction for the Indian accusations against Pakistan on terrorism any longer. Our narrative is reflected in the reports of the monitoring team of the 1267 Counterterrorism Committee on Al-Qaeda and Daesh. India insists on just raising old issues which are not current and which everybody in the world community knows are not current. There is no terrorism from Pakistan. The terrorism actually is being sponsored by India from Afghanistan, TTP, the Majid Brigade, the BLA. These are all sponsored by India. And there is collusion on the part of the interim government, at least with regard to the TTP. So I just want to underline that. The communique that was issued in Washington, the Indians forced this sentence that it did not say hub of terrorism. It just said that Pakistan territory should not be used for terrorism. This is an old sentence which Indians keep insisting on putting into their bilateral communiques with the United States. And we have told them that this is gratuitous and false, and therefore the U.S. should not allow the third country to come into their capital and denigrate Pakistan or any other country. So, having said that, I'd like to say that Pakistan's priorities, of course, in the UN Security Council, are first and foremost to promote adherence to the UN Charter and the principles of the Charter, which call for the right of self-determination, sovereignty of states, respect for the territorial integrity of states, non-interference in internal affairs, and non-use of force, and the non-acquisition of territory by the use of force. These are fundamental principles which are important for all countries, especially for Pakistan, facing aggression over the years from India as such. So these are principles that we will apply to all issues and we will try to promote in the Security Council. Of course, our priorities, you are very familiar with what our priorities are. Jammu and Kashmir is a priority for Pakistan. Afghanistan is a priority for Pakistan. Counter-terrorism is a priority. Peacekeeping and peace building is a priority for Pakistan. These are all issues on which we will try to project our views and our positions, and we are already doing so. I think you must have seen the statement which was made in the Security Council by the Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister, Mr. Dar, during the debate called by China, in which all our issues, our priorities, and our policies were set out in considerable detail.
Excellency, Munir Akram Sahab, as you said, that these all things were highlighted during a recent visit by Pakistani Foreign Minister, Deputy Prime Minister, and who was invited specially by the China, and China had presidency of UN Security Council. Whatever you have seen, we all have seen in 2024, 2025, and in 2023, with reference to Middle East, with reference to aggression against Gaza, and some of finest speeches you have delivered in UN Security Council highlighting the plight of the Palestinian people. So keeping in view the Middle Eastern peace, then of course Jammu and Kashmir, that you over decades have been highlighting, and there have been continuously no attention, no respect to the UN documents by India on Kashmir and on Gaza by Israel. So still you think that the UN Security Council, this multilateralism, this UN Charter, and this UN Security Council is still relevant because there have been challenges?
Of course, Mateen, there have been challenges. And the challenges flow from the fact that big powers use their power to impose what they want. But the Security Council and the United Nations and the whole approach of multilateralism is designed to provide protection to the smaller countries, those who rely on respect for the UN Charter, for the rule of law, for international humanitarian law. The smaller countries rely on that to protect themselves from the bigger powers. And therefore, for them, the Security Council and multilateralism, the United Nations, are essential. Even if they are not the most effective, there is no other choice for us except to play in the multilateral field as a means of defending ourselves from the bigger powers. And that is why the United Nations is important. It's important for the small and medium countries of the world. And Pakistan relies on the principles of the Charter, because without that, there will be complete law of the jungle. And already we are seeing this, a law of the jungle, unilateral solutions imposed by military powers like Israel in the Middle East, in Ukraine, in other places. We see unilateral use of force. And Pakistan has to protect itself against a unilateral use of force by big powers or any outlaw state. And that's why we are committed to the United Nations and to multilateralism.
Any important event Pakistan is going to organize during its short tenure as president of the Security Council, because it will be a great opportunity. And of course, Pakistan has a number of very close friends within the international community, some of the friends like China, then within the Muslim world, Saudi Arabia, a number of other countries. So what we are planning in July 2025, when Pakistan will be briefly the president of UN Security Council.
Yes, we will be the president of Security Council in July. Of course, I will have retired by then, and so my successor will take the lead. But we are obviously still considering what are the issues that we should raise in our signature event, and perhaps Pakistan will have one or two signature events, which will highlight our approach to international relations and our approach to multilateralism. But we're still considering exactly what are the topics that we should put forward and what initiatives we should take under those topics.
Excellency, the other day we have seen your very powerful statement while speaking in the UN Security Council, and some of things that you highlighted, that was UN Security Council Sanction Committee 1267 report on presence of some of the significant terrorist organizations in Afghanistan. So please elaborate that the UN Security Council is highlighting this fact, and Pakistan over last many years have been stressing, particularly last more than three years since the fall of Kabul. So what is the way forward now? Things have been highlighted that terrorist organizations are there, and you have also said they're getting support from India. And currently, Pakistani security forces almost every day are laying down the lives of their great soldiers and officers in fighting these all terrorists in Balochistan and in KP. So what is the way forward then? Will United Nations pay any attention, can do anything? International community can do anything in eliminating these safe havens of the terrorist?
Well, at the national level, obviously terrorism we are countering at the national level, and we have a national action plan.
Exactly, at our own we are fighting.
Yeah, we have our own plan. We are suppressing terrorism in Pakistan wherever it raises its head. We are protecting our border, and where necessary, we are countering the terrorist safe havens. So that actions we will obviously continue to do as long as there is a threat from TTP and other terrorists. At the same time, we have to try to exert international pressure on those who are supporting this terrorism. And obviously, first and foremost, it's the terrorist organizations which are against us, the TTP, Daesh. There is also the BLA and the Majid Brigade in particular, who have attacked Pakistan. So we have to build pressure on them. And one of the steps in building the pressure is to get our narrative endorsed by the international community and the Security Council. We have several reports now over the past year, you would have seen that our narrative with regard to the TTP has been endorsed. Our narrative on the Majid Brigade has also been propagated and clarified. The monitoring team's last report has absolutely clearly said that Afghanistan is now the terrorist hub, where 20 plus terrorist organizations are present, and these must be addressed, and the Afghan interim government has to address them. So that pressure is continuing. We also need to expose the Indian involvement in the terrorist sponsorship of terrorism from Afghanistan and elsewhere. And that is a part that, of course, we're working on. And there is a growing recognition that India is a sponsor of terrorism, and the fact that
in the UN, UN.
There is greater recognition, especially because of the Indian assassination campaign, which everybody realized was happening. First, again, the publicity on Canada, then they tried in the United States. And then our narrative, which we had been saying for many months, that India has carried out such assassinations in Pakistan. So our narrative now carries credibility because India has used it as its campaign of terrorism all across the world, and people are realizing that this is a kind of rogue state which is doing what it wants in terms of assassinating people, killing people. So it is not above sponsoring terrorism against Pakistan. And I think we have evidence of the sponsorship, the financing, the organization of TTP against Pakistan. And that's why we are so vociferous in conveying to our friends in Kabul that you do not become a part of this, that not only are the Taliban sponsoring TTP terrorism against Pakistan, but also receiving help and collaborating with India against Pakistan in sponsoring terrorism. And we have to project this narrative. We have to convince the international community of this narrative, and we have to exert pressure at all levels on the TTP, on other terrorist organizations, on the Afghan interim government, and on India. And that is going to be our campaign.
Excellency, just to recall, you said that there is a greater recognition that India is a terror state. Keeping in view, you cited Canadian incident, then Gurpatman Singh Pannu's failed assassination attempt in New York, and then certain target killings in Pakistan, elsewhere in the world. Then a very simple question, Excellency, then why international community is silent on that issue? There have been very serious, heated debate between United States and India when on Gurpatman Singh issue, although it was exposed timely. So, but again, question arises, despite these old track records of sponsoring terrorism, targeting people worldwide who might be against their interests, international community is still silent in taking any possible action against India.
Yes. Mateen, it's not the international community. It is a few big powers who are friends with India and who provide protection to India. And you know who these powers are. And it is because of their protection that India is not being condemned in multilateral forums. So it's not the Security Council or the General Assembly. Everybody, who is honest, realizes what India is doing, and the fact that it is a arrogant, aggressive entity which is acting to dominate the whole region, and it even acts arrogantly against in its relations with even the big powers. India thinks it has already become a global power. It is not. It may be a regional power. It's not a global power. But they have deluded themselves into believing that they can do whatever they want. And this is a dangerous entity, and at least you would have seen our speeches, our statements, warning the world that this is a dangerous entity and this must be kept.
Excellency, you talked about this global governance. It's a very broad term. So how global governance could be improved? Would you elaborate, please?
Well, you would have seen we summarized our position in the Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister statement during the debate convened by China. But basically, there are the following elements I think are important for global governance at the present time. First of all, there is a move for reforming the Security Council. The Security Council must become more democratic. Pakistan says that there should be more non-permanent members. We do not like to add permanent members because it's the permanent members and the veto power which has paralyzed the council, and we should not add more permanent members. It will further paralyze the Security Council. There should be more democratic representation of the small and medium states who are the large majority in the United Nations. Secondly, we need to improve the powers of the General Assembly. This is the most democratic body where everyone is represented, and this body must be empowered, must be allowed to use its authority, which has considerable authority under the Charter. But the major powers have not allowed it to act, and we should shift the center of gravity of international action from the Security Council, where when it is paralyzed, into the General Assembly and get democratic decisions. Thirdly, we need to reform the international financial institutions. These are completely unequal. The developing countries have a very small voice. All the decisions are made by the major powers. One large power has a veto power with 18% of the votes in the IMF and the World Bank. And that this kind of monopoly or oligopoly in the international financial institutions must end. There must be a more democratic system of decision-making. There should be more equity in the issuance of financing for development, issuance of special drawing rights, issuance of quotas. These must become much more equal so we have access to financing that is commensurate with the needs of developing countries for financing their development. And the whole issue of debt is one big example of the injustice of the system that we are facing at the moment. So that's the third thing. Fourthly, there are emerging areas where governance is required. The whole digital space is wide open. Regulation is not as adequate as necessary, especially now that we are getting artificial intelligence. This is an area that could become threatening. Cybersecurity is one issue, but with accelerated by artificial intelligence, the threat to peace and security could become much more complex and much more immediate. And we need regulation, international regulations to control these technologies. And this is a major endeavor that is required. And accompanying that, I think we need to have greater governance of new technologies that are emerging, other biotechnologies, chemical technologies, nuclear technologies, all the autonomous weapons technologies. These are all areas in which regulation is deficient, and we need to build those regulations and control of these new technologies and the implications for global peace and development. And we need to do a lot of work on these new areas as well.
Excellency, there have been very, very significant development that this suspension of United States assistance for international development, number of countries got affected, including Pakistan. So when it comes to United Nations and different agencies, since decades and decades, they've been carrying out different operations in Pakistan. So USAID is separate thing. UN different agencies which have been operating in Pakistan in the days to come. Do you think their operations will continue? Is there is any threat by the United States to reduce or to cut the contribution to the UN system?
Well, Mateen bhai, the U.S. Aid to Pakistan is largely provided, as far as I know, through non-governmental
Exactly.
organizations and other institutions, not provided through the
Government
government
agencies.
as such. So it's not going to impact our balance of payments or our financial situation as such. It will impact the programs that are being funded by the NGOs and by civil society in Pakistan. So they are the ones that will suffer the
Will be
most
affected.
in terms of whatever programs they're doing, whether it's polio, whether it's other programs that they're doing through the UNICEF or other agencies. Those programs will suffer, and they will have a humanitarian impact for those programs which are directed at helping poorer people and so on and so forth. Obviously, civil society all across the world is rising up against the measures that have been taken by the United States. But in the final analysis, this is a sovereign decision by the United States. It's their money, so one can't say very much about sovereign decisions, although you can observe that it will have humanitarian impacts, not only in Pakistan. In Pakistan, not so much, because their programs in Pakistan are very limited. But in other countries where USAID money was a large component of budgets and provision of assistance, there will be a large impact.
Excellency, one this important development which has come under fire by a number of Muslim countries, not only number of, but almost entire Muslim world strongly condemned it. This possible dislocation or displacement of Palestinians from Gaza. Still, I've seen the Arab leaders met. They have also rejected this plan. So, where this proposal stands now, do you think the world powers that you have mentioned, they will finally put pressure, they will finally go for this proposal? How it could be rejected? What is this way out? Displacement of Palestinians from Gaza?
Well, first of all, this is completely a proposal to displace people from their own homeland is completely illegal under international law, under the UN Charter. So obviously, it cannot be accepted by the vast majority of the international community, and even the Arab states and Islamic countries. They have all rejected this proposal to displace the Palestinian people. Now, of course, the Americans have turned around and said, well, if you don't like our proposal, give us an alternate of how to solve this problem. And I think that our Arab friends are working on an alternate plan. I'm not absolutely clear as to what that plan would be. I imagine that there would be some proposals for rehabilitation, reconstruction in Gaza, and that instead of the Israelis paying for it, which they should because they've destroyed it, it is probably Arab friends who may have to put up the money to reconstruct Gaza and rehabilitate the Palestinian population without displacing them out of Gaza. I think that's the key. The key requirement is that Palestinians must not be expelled from Gaza, and also that Israel must not be allowed to annex the West Bank or Gaza into its own territory, which some of their extremist leaders want to do.
This is how you see the future of this Gaza ceasefire. And over the last couple of days, you have also seen globally, international media and people have seen exchange of prisoners. Hamas has released a number of Israeli prisoners, and in return, Israel has released hundreds of Palestinian prisoners. How is this developing, releasing and exchanging prisoners, and the future of this ceasefire? Despite ceasefire, Israeli leaders and Prime Minister have been on record that we can break this ceasefire anytime. We will get hostages free and things like that. So, what is the future of peace in Gaza?
Well, it's obviously our interest and the interest of the Palestinians, the interest of the Arab countries, is that the ceasefire continues to be implemented and respected. In the second and third phases, the ceasefire should happen. The Israeli, especially the interest of the extremists in Israel, is to see how they may want to reignite the conflict, and Netanyahu has threatened to revive the military campaign in Gaza on some excuse or the other. So we hope that this will not happen. We hope that President Trump, who has supported the ceasefire, that he will be able to control and contain the Israelis from reviving the conflict. And we hope that the Arab countries will be able to persuade the Americans to do so. Pakistan, for its part, is also playing its role in supporting continuation of the ceasefire and a just solution to Gaza and the Palestinian issue. And I believe that we have agreed, our Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister has mentioned that he and the Saudi Foreign Minister, Prince Faisal, have agreed to convene a foreign ministers meeting of the OIC on the 7th of March in Jeddah. And I believe that obviously the OIC should contribute to supporting a just approach to the issue, continuation of the ceasefire agreement, the humanitarian assistance to the Palestinian people, early reconstruction of Gaza, and a two-state solution to Palestine. These are the objectives we must continue to pursue and promote together with the Arab and the OIC world and in the United Nations.
Excellency, you have seen recent reports that Israeli Prime Minister have been asking the American administration, particularly US President, to support Israel in targeting, attacking, and destroying Iranian nuclear capabilities. If this happens, Iran is a close neighbor and brotherly country. This will trigger a greater security instability in the region. So how you view this development, how it could be prevented?
Obviously, this is something that we would not like to see. It would be hugely destabilizing for the whole region. And I think that everyone, except Israel perhaps, and Prime Minister Netanyahu perhaps, realize how destabilizing that would be. All the players, both in the West and the East and in the region, we all realize how destabilizing such a unilateral attack by Israel on Iran's nuclear facilities would be. So everybody is trying to work to prevent it. Even President Trump has said there should be a deal with Iran in order to prevent this. The question, of course, it's a very complex issue. There are many moving parts in the deal, and both sides would need to make concessions in order to achieve an agreement. We know that contacts are continuing, contacts are happening between Iran and other players, and we hope that those contacts will lead to some kind of an agreement to revive the JCPOA, the nuclear agreement, and to get other confidence-building measures that would enable all the countries of the region to live together in peace and security. And that is our hope. Pakistan will contribute to that, both as a member of the Security Council as well as a regional country. And we hope that this will achieve a peaceful resolution and that Israel will be prevented from further aggression against Iran.
A very precise comment on Saudi hosting Russians and Americans on Ukraine. You think whatever have been initial discussions and agreement, it will lead to the end of Ukrainian war?
It is obviously not as yet certain as to what will be the outcome. The fact is that the pieces have been moved. This was a frozen situation where the initiative by President Trump has broken the ice, so to speak, and things are moving. We don't know whether it will lead to a outcome which is sustainable, but it certainly has shifted the chess pieces on the board, and obviously there will be diplomatic movement, and hopefully this will lead to some kind of a cessation of hostilities. Pakistan has been calling for a halt in the hostilities for the past 3 years, and once hostilities cease, negotiations can take place, and then we can find a solution which is acceptable to everybody.
One sentence, lastly, by closing the program, Pakistan's perspective on global peace and security as non-permanent member of UN Security Council.
Well, as I said at the outset, our approach is to promote international law, promote the UN Charter, promote the principles on which international relations are supposed to be conducted.
Yes.
That is the only way in which we can have peace and sustained peace, so that countries can focus on economic and social development and improving the conditions of their own people.
Thank you so much, indeed, Excellency Ambassador Munir Akram Saab, for speaking on a number of issues which are strategically important, not only for Pakistan, for the region, and for global peace and security, despite your very busy schedule. And dear viewers, till our next program, goodbye and Allah Hafiz from studios.
Thank you.